Oh, 1 second, please. Let me go back. Put your questions in the chat box too, and we will get to them after all 3 speakers. So right now I'm going to give about a 2-3 minute overview of what's going on at Detroit 2030 District. Many of you know all of this, and I apologize if it's repetitive, but every lunch and learn we have some new people, so we always want to include as much information as possible. In case you're not familiar with 2030 districts, we are a network of districts across North America. We are now up to 23 districts. We have over 520 million square feet dedicated to our program. We are proud to be the only district, or only state with 3 districts, being Detroit, Grand Rapids, and Ann Arbor. Currently, if you're not familiar with our district, we have over 35 million square feet committed to our reducing of energy and water and transportation emissions. We have about 40 businesses that support this program and bring it to our members. And we have about 40 nonprofits that we team up with. And those are our nonprofit collaborators. In case you aren't aware, we have 3 areas that we're working with our building owners. This program is free for them. And we're trying to help them reduce energy and water in commercial buildings, as well as reducing transportation emissions to and from their building. We're trying to do this across the district of all of our buildings together, a reduction of 50% by 2030. The year 2030, it stems from the 2030 Architecture Challenge you may be familiar with. And this is how it all started, with an architect challenging Ed Mazria challenging some architects to do a better job of renovating the buildings, and when they build them, to do a better job too. And we're also aiming to have any new buildings to be carbon neutral by 2030. And what are our members? Who are our members? We are a private-public partnership, a little different. A lot of times you hear public-private partnership, but we are supported by the private community. So our members are 3 member types, as I mentioned: property owners and managers. It's free for them to belong. Professional stakeholders are the businesses that support us, and they do support us financially. And then community stakeholders is the nonprofits that we work with. I always like to thank the people that walk the talk, or however you want to say it. These are the companies that put their money forward for us to have this program. We're super proud and excited to have them as members of our organization and supporting our program. In case you don't know, we do have some new tools for our members we're super excited about. We have a new building member dashboard that can allow our members to measure their energy consumption and track reductions. It can identify some poor performing systems in their building, and this is a customized dashboard for their building only. If you're a member and you want to learn more about it, please let us know. There's a lot of other tools to it. We can give you a free demonstration. We are also working with DTE to make things easier for our building members. And one of the things that we've noticed over the last few years is the hard time it is, the amount of time it takes for building members to put their energy data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So currently we're in a pilot with DTE right now to get their data sent directly to Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which would save our building member owners a lot of time and energy and effort to tracking their energy usage. We currently have 36 Detroit buildings that are participating, and Ann Arbor is also in this pilot too. It just started. If you want any more information on it, just let us know. We currently have 3 best practice groups: venue, museums, houses of worship, and we've just restarted our multifamily best practice group. If you want any information on those, please let me know. And of course, the Detroit Energy Challenge we launched before COVID. It's been a little bit in and out, but we are happy to say we are now working with the City of Detroit again, Office of Sustainability, to get going on this again. So if you are a member and you want to be a part of this competition, let us know. We plan to give awards out along with the mayor in April of 23. We also are planning for a water competition with our building members starting next year, along with the City of Detroit and DWSD. So we're excited about that. So how do you get involved? You can always add a building to our program. You can join as a professional stakeholder like these people have that are presenting today. We also have statewide partnerships and now national partnerships across all of our districts. That is available now. It's actually international because we have a couple Canadian partners or districts, I should say. You can become a volunteer or you can sponsor an event. So this is how you find us, and information on our website. And you can follow us through social media and sign up for a newsletter, and that's how you can stay in touch. But that is it for the update of Detroit 2030 district. So thank you for listening. And right now I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is John Javarian from Michigan Solar Systems. So John, if you want to go ahead and try to share your screen, we will let you get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Connie. Can you let me know when you guys can see my screen here?
I can see it.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go into a present mode. Let me know it looks as it should. Awesome.
Looks good.
Excellent. Thank you. So like Connie said, my name is John Javarian. I'm with Michigan Solar Solutions. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the value streams of owning a commercial or residential solar PV asset. So when we say solar PV, we're mentioning photovoltaic, meaning that these are solar panels that generate electricity for on-site or otherwise use. So I'll go ahead and get into it here, and to kind of kick us off, I want to let you guys know a little bit about who MSS is and where we're situated in the market here. So we were founded in 2007 and have now been in business for almost 14 years. And since then, we've installed over 7 megawatts of power into the Michigan grid, whether it be consumers, DT, or any of the smaller municipal electric providers across the state. And for reference, that's 7 million watts of power. Now, what our firm does is the design, installation, and servicing of these assets. And so what we are traditionally called is a behind the meter EPC. And an EPC is an engineering, procurement, and construction firm. We also happen to develop projects as well and build those projects. So ultimately, what we do is we tie in solar electricity to existing sites. We do not do utility scale electricity generation for sale to the utility companies. So that's a little bit about who we are. We are very ecstatic that we have a Better Business Bureau rating of A+, and we now have 3 NABCEP certified solar photovoltaic employees at our company, which is just about 45 people now and growing very rapidly. I believe over the past 2 years, we've added north of 15 employees. So we're very excited to continue to be growing in the market here in Michigan. So the first thing I want to do is discuss a little bit about how solar works and how our value proposition traditionally is formulated. And that is under the guise of utility programs that allow for what's called the metering of electricity. So when we situate a solar asset on a commercial business, it's going to generate energy, and that energy is first and foremost going to be used on site when they are consuming electricity. If the asset generates more than they're using, they can send that power to the grid for a credit as the utility sees that value, and then they can pull from that credit. So the situation that exists is an opportunity for a financial cost offset with the solar to provide a return for your investment into the technology. Now, these programs are regularly shifting and changing here in Michigan as they are across the entire United States. And the reality is that this is due to the grid changing its reality. We are moving from centralized electricity generation to distributed generation sources. And this is part of that process. And of course, it's never easy to do something that's in opposition of a regulated monopoly. So that's always a fun part of our business here, is working with the utility companies. So to that avail, there is an interconnection process for these assets. There are regulations in place for the sizing of systems and where you can and can't put systems, run power, etc., all stipulated and regulated by the Michigan Public Service Commission. Now, along with some of those more realistic functions on how this performs and works, there's also tax incentive associated here with this purchase. So a lot of our clients find a value stream in the tax strategy that can come with a solar purchase like this. And to give you the high level overview, the tax incentive for a commercial business today is almost 50% of your total project costs. So it can be very beneficial for an organization to implement that into their tax strategy as to get the best possible return for their investment here. Now, I want to go through some value streams that we've identified here for owning a solar photovoltaic system. And none of these value streams are fictitious. Every single one of these has been brought forward to us by a potential or existing client as to how they've managed to extract value out of their solar purchase. And so the first one is very basic. It's very obvious that this is a cost-cutting opportunity. So again, when we talk about behind the meter solar, we have an existingly served location with electricity that's coming through a meter, and we are tying in behind that meter into your electrical distribution equipment so as to reduce the consumption from the utility company. We are supplementing the power consumption with solar at that site. And so to be very clear, it is a cost offset opportunity, not a revenue generating opportunity for businesses today. And within this, you have a return on your investment. And so this is traditionally the backbone that has driven our industry into existence, is the opportunity to invest into your electricity and to establish a return for your business or for your home alike. So this metering electricity, well, it became law here in Michigan in 2008, and it's been amended a few times since, but that is really what initiated the solar industry behind the meter to start here in Michigan. So that would be the first value stream we're seeing here. Now, this is another of our projects here on the Imagine Theater in Royal Oak, Michigan. And there is a huge value in marketing your solar system. And you'll see here that I've included a quote from the president of our company. And I think that this really hits home on how much value this can bring to your marketing efforts. And so what this says is that I know of no other marketing expense other than a solar array that even if the marketing message fell flat, the campaign would still return a profit. And so when we look at this, and if you imagine buying a solar array out of your marketing budget, it's true. Because when you send out mailers or flyers, or maybe have a marketing initiative to purchase ads, you have no idea if you're going to gain a return. With solar, you know that you will return because of the previous value stream here. You are cost offsetting, and that's going to return. And if you get any additional benefit to your business, you now have that marketing benefit and you've returned sooner. Whether it's bringing another customer into your business or earning a new opportunity within your industry to sell your services or goods, there is certainly value in marketing this asset. Now, this is another project of ours that we actually completed last week. This is a unstaffed car wash. I can't really think of a better asset to be putting solar on than those with already very low operational costs, since we are, again, affecting your operation costs here. So the value stream, another value stream that we see very, very commonly and increasingly so, is that of compliance. Whether you have a corporate sustainability goal or target that you are interested to hit by a certain date, whether you have somebody in your supply chain that has that authority or ability to influence your business's decisions and practices, or maybe it's even an accreditation compliance that you have earned a certain certificate for being X amount sustainable or having such an energy reduction, and you need to comply with that accreditation, and so solar fits in there. So there's a lot of value here in doing what we're saying we're going to do, and value in complying with those that can affect our businesses. One very commonly that I'm hearing as of late is the auto industries. And we all know that there are a couple businesses in the auto industries, the firms that are accredited with making the cars that have newly stated sustainability goals. And that's trickling all the way down the supply chain, because the reality is that some of these smaller manufacturers who make nuts and bolts, they have one client. And if that client stipulates that they need them to do this, they have to do it to maintain their business model. So it's something we're seeing increasingly more in the market. This here is a picture that Connie might be familiar with. This is looking north at the IBEW 58 building down there in Detroit, which is a net zero building. And so this is some solar up there. And another value stream that we can extract from solar is the value that you get by adding this to your property. So based on some market data that Zillow had looked at, they find that it adds about 4.1% value to a residential home. There haven't been nearly as many studies that are market data driven for commercial buildings, but certainly there is a value increase there, because if you ever went to sell it, the next business would look at this and go, well, there are lower operating costs by operating here as opposed to down the street, for example. This also very well may lead to a quicker sale of the building, which again is advantageous to the business selling the building. Finally, I'll point out that in Michigan here, we do have a property tax exemption for systems lesser than 150 kilowatts AC. This also happens to be our metering cap for solar here in Michigan. So that being said, if you have an asset that is of that size or lesser, you won't observe any property tax increases until the building or home is actually sold. So the organization that would be buying it would never actually observe any of those negative financial impacts from this cost-cutting opportunity. So we're really excited about that and hoping that we can continue to drive that up to larger systems here in the future. Now, finally, everything else. And this, again, goes into the fact that value is in the eye of the beholder, very similar to beauty. Now, there is certainly an environmental benefit here, whether you have goals to achieve those, or it's just a feel-good thing for your organization or your personal agenda. You are reducing your coal-fired or natural gas-fired electricity consumption, i.e. reducing the pollution that comes from generating that energy. You also may observe that your business has a higher level of employee satisfaction or retention, because we're seeing more and more employees in the workspace aligning with the values of their employers. And so by doing this, you're going to speak to those employees that value this and are aligned with this, and ultimately get your team, your firm, a better synergy, higher levels of retention. Now, finally, there are site-specific and industry-specific value streams, and I'll cover a couple of them here, and then I've got a short case study for us to take a look at. But I had a very unique one recently where a building owner had metal standing seam roof on his building, and they liked to paint that roof annually. And the cost to do so was about $15,000. And the primary detriment to this paint, that was likely not intended to be on a metal roof in the heat of the sun all summer here in Michigan, is that the solar panel would keep the sun from damaging the paint and requiring that $15,000 annual payment. So based on the characteristics of your specific site that your business operates in, you may be able to have some level of site-specific value stream originate. Another I could think of might be erosion at a given site. Maybe you have a hill that would be perfect for a south-facing solar array, and you can't get vegetation to bite very well. Well, we can come in and, just like the picture you see here, use a ground mount system to give that land a better structure to it, so as to mitigate that erosion concern. Now, also, specific industries will derive value from solar or electricity generation assets alike. A very common one, and what I'm going to get into next, is car dealerships and car manufacturing. And so to discuss that a little bit, I want to show you guys a little bit about a project that we did.
John,
Yep,
John, sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you know we're about 13 minutes in to the presentation. So I just want to make sure we have time for questions and for the other presenters, but I also wanted to let you finish what you were about to
30
present.
seconds.
Sure.
So this is a car dealership that we did a project on recently, earlier this year. And the reason I wanted to share this with you guys is that while we were on site doing our visit, the owner turned to me and said, you know, the reason that I'm doing this is to protect my business, because I know that in a year or 2 years, every car on this lot is going to be electric and I might need to charge them. And my electricity consumption is going to go up regardless of what happens here. And so, you know, he doesn't know yet what guidelines he's going to have to charge those cars. He might have to top off a battery every week, every 2 weeks to keep it in optimal specification for the buyer. He just doesn't know what he doesn't know. So protecting his business was important to him, and all of these values stacking into that situation made great sense for their business. So you've got a couple of metrics here that you can see, but ultimately there are many value streams to owning a solar asset, not just that of cost cutting. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you take a look and derive that value for your business.
Great. Thank you, John. That was awesome. It's good to see the top of the IBW building. Don't get up there too often. Okay, our next speaker is Patrick Judd from Environmental Consulting and Technology. I think many of you are familiar with Patrick and the work he does, so we're excited to see what he's going to talk about today. Patrick, can you share your screen?
Yep, it's coming up. There, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, yes, as some of you may be aware of the stuff that I've been involved with, I am a landscape architect, been practicing kind of high performance sustainable sites for nearly 32 years. In fact, I was involved with the landscape over at the Herman Miller Greenhouse over in Holland, which is a LEED certified pioneer building. And that's where my interest in green stormwater infrastructure came about, because on a 35-acre site, 235,000 square foot facility, 600 car parking, 100 truck docks, we had one catch basin on that whole site. And it was a matter of how we managed that, that water. So one of the first projects I want to start to talk about is the Ann Arbor Municipal Center. They decided they really wanted to take green stormwater infrastructure to a whole different level, as well as a high performance building over there at the Municipal Center and Courts. In which case, when they realized that they're demanding all these ordinance and regulations on developers and builders, that they felt that they needed to kind of lead by example. And so in this instance, they took you know, the building site to the extreme and wanted to look at stormwater management in a different way. And that is, how could they embrace it and celebrate it beyond just bioretention systems, permeable pavers, and just really understanding what it is about water quality and the meaning behind that. So what they did is they put a call out to a German landscape architect, Herbert Seipel, who's done magnificent work throughout the country, and we were fortunate to be able to partner with him on the redevelopment of the Ann Arbor Municipal Center. In this case, you know, having kind of walked the city and the region with Herbert Seipel just to get some inspiration as to what he was going to do to, again, embrace and celebrate that art as part of the green stormwater infrastructure and really understand what is rainwater about. In this instance, in the image to the far right, Herbert is in the middle there, and the bronze statue that is there kind of represents the soil and infiltration of that soil that allows the permeation of rainwater. And so those little blue LED lights that are incorporated into it represents the raindrops that are kind of falling through that soil profile. And then in the bottom left corner is kind of the Huron River itself. Some of the abstract images that are boulders, banks, and some of the vegetation that kind of works its way around the bends and turns in the Huron River. And at the same time, he's very big in participatory art, in which case he allows the children to be able to interact with that water. City of Ann Arbor really didn't like that, so they have signage up now and kind of trying to discourage that interaction. But, you know, for the first year, the kids had some opportunity to be able to do that. Other aspects of it, the city hall has a green roof, but some of that excess water that comes off goes into what we call a rain chain and a runnel. So therefore, the kind of shows the route in which the rainwater is taking and going into this cistern that is actually an open grade aggregate. So beneath this rain garden system is about a 20-foot open grade aggregate backfilled into a rubber lined material that is then pumped out as part of the irrigation system. But above that, there's about 2 feet of bioengineered soil that allows that infiltration. And we worked with another landscape architectural firm that created the plant palette out there, but it's both mostly to express not only the local vegetation, the native vegetation in the area, but also some of that, again, understanding and celebrating the rain and the rainwater itself. The second project is another one in Ann Arbor. This is a situation where the rain garden was to be installed in an area that was part of a floodplain. And the city was able to secure some funds with FEMA to be able to raise a couple of old buildings that were right there in the floodplain. And at the same time, they had a stormwater utility charge to developers that 1% of the city fees would actually go into some form of sculpture or art throughout the city. This, in fact, happened to be the last project that they were able to implement it before it was reorganized. But what we were able to do is commission an artist or sculptor out of Boulder, Colorado, who came in. Again, we walked around the city to try to get some inspiration, as well as the Huron River, because underneath this is one of the Allen Creek tributaries to the Huron. And one of the things that they wanted to understand is, you know, what is this park going to be like, and what was it that we really wanted to express? And in this instance, those silhouettes of the fish are smallmouth bass, which happens to be one of the blue ribbon fly fishing rivers in southeast Michigan. But also wanted to kind of bring up the storyline or the narrative is that in order for that fish population to be able to thrive and become a blue ribbon has to depend on water quality and the habitat in which they are in. And so it's a one-way street, and as you're coming down First and Kingsley, these fish are looking straight at you if you're in your automobile, and you actually are starting to peer around this, and it is as if the fish are looking at you throughout that curve that you go around. This is one of the fall images. What was interesting is the 2 developments that are in back were being built right after the installation. And what was really interesting when you look at the promotion pieces for the marketing of those units, they actually had in the foreground graphically overlaid this fish park that was a part of the marketing pieces, because they really wanted to show that, you know, you look out your window and this is what you actually begin to see. 2 of the fish there's a path that goes right through there. 2 of the fish has benches that people can sit on and be able to just kind of contemplate the day in the sun, just kind of looking at some of the butterflies that actually pollinate in this area on the native plants, as well as some of the birds that are there. One of the things that we start to look at as far as stewardship and management of these systems is, you know, there is a group that is in both of those condo developments that have organized and do a lot of weeding of the rain garden, but at the same time, the city, because we like to be different and because we like to do things, simply and quickly is we actually do prescribed ecological burns in these areas. And so, every third year, the county and the city get together and do a prescribed burn because most of the native plants that are here are the prairie type. And because you time it in such a way that you can knock off the weeds a little bit quicker and be less aggressive in this instance. And so when we start to invite the public to it, it's either going to be a fish fry or smoked fish that we like to bring them to. The final project that we're working on right now with the Charles Wright Museum is actually looking at the permeable paver system, which is down in the bottom of the image. And what is it that we can start to do to create not only the story of celebrating and embracing rainwater, but how, again, can we bring some of that artful expression in an African-American history and story and narrative. And in this instance, we met with several groups and community members to really understand what is it that we really wanted to express in this instance. And what we arrived at is the Sankofa sign, which is an Adinka symbol, which is derived from West Africa. And there's about 30 or 40 of these Adinka symbols, just kind of representing, respect and honor, just kind of life's journeys and guidelines. So the Sankofa is actually one of those to look back at your history to understand the future. And we deliberately looked at the symbol, was accepted. And one of the things that's most interesting about it is that the beak of the bird or the mouth is pointed very deliberately to the front doors of the museum to express this is where your journey begins to understanding that future as well as the history in which you came from. The other aspect of this is that on the campus we have about 18 other types of exhibits that are going to be going in over the next several years, in which we are taking, again, expressing water in a different way to be able to celebrate and express it. That is going to be something meaningful so that if you're an engineer, you can be attracted to something like this. If you are into arts, you begin to understand how we can bring something like this. And just really understanding a different level of how we can bring green stormwater infrastructure into a whole different light of understanding that, what water quality really means and what it really means to a sustainable community. And I'll end with, yes, we have our hot weathers this summer, but we can also look to winter to see how winter plays into that landscape and how it expresses itself even in the winter months. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Those are some great projects. You probably get a lot of people if you served real smoked fish well.
Yeah.
Some blackened fish or something. That's awesome. I never knew about the burning thing. That's really interesting. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our third speaker, Jeffrey Seipel. He's with Biomik, I can say it correctly. And we're excited to hear what he has to say, and then continue to put your questions into the chat box, and then Kendall will go ahead and try to get to some of those before we close today. So welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Seipel. I'm the founder of Biomik. We are a HVAC optimization company. We're local here in Novi, Michigan, and but we do work all over the country. We also license our technology to other service providers, and the Biomik technology is being used in pretty much every state in the country. Last year was pretty good for us. Even with everything going on with COVID, we saw a lot of uptake in the medical and hospital arena due to COVID concerns. So let me kind of get into it here. So what we're doing is optimizing heat transfer surfaces within HVAC systems. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the nuts and bolts of HVAC, but there are several different heat transferring surfaces. In the air handlers, the coils handle a lot of the interaction between the building's load and the energy used. Cooling towers, chillers are also kind of fall into those categories. So what we have found through our last 10 years of development is that we're not really looking at trying to remove dirt or fouling. It is primarily biofilm. So the problem is the microbial growth that insulates and destroys both airflow and thermal transfer and heat transfer surfaces. Biofilms act very differently than individual microbes, and the science around biofilm remediation has grown exponentially in the last 5 years. The kind of the secret weapon that we have uncovered is the use of probiotics. Biofilms are very resistant to traditional chemistry, UV light, everything that you can throw at them, they've survived through. They do have a chink in their armor when it comes to other microbes. So we actually use living bacteria to infiltrate and disassemble the biofilms where they exist. And then we have clean in place technology then to remove the bulk of the biofilm, returning thermal transfer surfaces to like new. So this is kind of the cross section of what a coil would look like in your air handler. Commercial coils can be very big and very thick and very dense. The surface area on a coil in a single air handler could be equal to the size of a football field. These structures are made to have a lot of surface area in a very small space. So they're ripe for biological activity. You add water, you add organic material in the air, and you have biofilm. So previously, the top section of the cross section there, you can kind of see how a biofilm will take up residency in the whole surface area of the coil. The middle section is a representation of what traditional methodology would deliver. You get some cleaning at the outer edges, but the inner majority is still covered with biofilm, which quickly regenerates. The bottom represents what we get after the Biomik process, which is a thorough cleaning and full remediation of biofilm from the coil. That way we can turn coils back to design specifics, which has incredible benefits in both performance and energy savings. The other part of the process is using steam. Once the probiotics loosen the biofilms in the coil, you have to then get all that material out of the coil. So we use a steam system. We're shooting water at 280 degrees at 1500 PSI, which gives us the ability to deeply clean the coil without damaging anything. Coils, the fins on coils can be delicate, especially if they're older. So being able to clean thoroughly but not do damage is a bit of a trick. You have to have just enough force, but not too much. This steam then kind of penetrates through the whole matrix. It emulsifies all of the biofilm that has been dislodged and then removes it from the coil. A quick case study. This is a blind third-party case study at the University of New Mexico. It was performed by one of my licensees, Aquis. It was done unbeknownst to them by the university energy manager. And the energy manager looked at 3 energy inputs. He looked at steam through a heating coil. He looked at chilled water through the cooling coil, and he looked at electricity loads for the fans that drive the air. What he found was that the project delivered a simple payback in just over 4 months. It had a return on investment of 180%. And you also get the soft benefits of improved performance, occupant comfort, and increasing IAQ. A new aspect of our development is cleaning of internal aspects of a chilled water coil. So those tubes that you see is what the chilled water flows through. The aluminum fins then are what the air that the building has flows over. So we're successfully treating the air side of the coil with our other process. What we found is that there's just as much problems on the chilled water side. So this is the inside of one of those tubes. This was taken from the old Pontchartrain Hotel. The coil was only 5 years old. We had to cross-section the coil to be able to get at it and take this video. But what you're looking at is mineral scale in the form of iron scale that builds up in all chilled water coils. The mineral scale has a very direct link to biofilm. They go hand in hand, and the biofilm actually creates the situation where the films can attach to the copper. The process that we developed is using, again, the probiotics, but we use it with a high density foam that we pump through the coil at 50 gallons a minute. So we're able to treat the biological aspects. And then the big advantage of having the foam is that we can actually pick up and remove very heavy sediment from the coil. So we're improving the thermal transfer of coils both on the air side and on the inside. One other aspect of the biofilm on the inside, you see these turquoise patches. That is corrosion. So the byproduct of biofilm are very strong acids, which then will eat the copper away. This is how you get pinholes in your coils. They actually kind of rot from the inside out. We also use this technology on cooling towers. So cooling towers have scale problems. They have rampant problems with biological issues. Everyone knows about Legionella and where it comes from. Our process is very effective at cleaning and optimizing cooling towers. They're every bit as sophisticated in design as a coil is. So restoring proper airflow, water pattern distribution, and thermal transfer of the surfaces is very important. This was a project that we did at the Niagara Falls Casino in New York. We had a third-party engineer do the study, and what they found was that in all four of the towers that we worked on, we increased the delta T, which means the difference in temperature of the water. So that's a performance metric. The chiller plant used almost 800,000 kilowatts less that year than it did the previous year. And the energy savings were about $144,000. That's in Canadian dollars. The simple payback for that project was just not even a couple of months. So it's very immediate and very beneficial to optimize these structures. It has an immediate impact on the performance and overall system efficiency. Another aspect I want to go over really quick is that now that we're starting to open buildings, everyone is very concerned about COVID. You have tenants, you have employees that are concerned about the wellness of the HVAC system. They're hearing all kinds of things on the news about airborne viruses and everything else. So one of the things that we did over this past year was implement a protocol to ascertain and measure bioloading in air handlers. So what happens with the air handler and the coil is that the air that we breathe passes through the air handlers hundreds of times a day. It just keeps cycling through and through. Air handlers and coils contain massive surface areas. The vast majority of these surfaces have very established biofilms. Biofilms provide habitat and safe harbor to many pathogens. COVID-19 has a surface survival rate in the weeks and months in the presence of biofilm. So this makes an ideal spot for COVID viruses to hang out. So the logical first step to address an airborne COVID in building is to check the air handlers and see what kind of situation you're in and how much biology you actually have in the air handler. So air handlers are not seen by most people in a building. There's only usually one or two techs that actually stick their heads in them. They maintain very good conditions for biological growth year round. You see the dark discoloration on this blower here, and that is an established biofilm. This air handler is not an exception. It's more of the rule of what I see on a day-to-day basis. So there is a need for an accurate and economic way to do microbial testing in air handlers to give you a quick way of telling you where you're at as far as bioload. The Biomik process works perfect on this situation. Our patented process first uses the probiotics, which can break down the biofilm. The steam cleaning then removes the biofilm and adds a sanitizing step. So all the surfaces in the air handler can be cleaned, not just the coil. And the important thing to remember is that all these structures in the air handler are behind the filtration. So there's nothing standing in the way of the biology in your air handler and your lungs. So it's important to understand that air handler wellness directly leads to the wellness of the air in the whole building.
Jeff, I just wanted to interrupt real quick,
Yep.
let you know we're about 13 minutes in.
I'm in my last slide.
Oh, perfect timing. Thank you.
So the microbial testing can show reduction in dangerous biofilm levels. And then post-cleaning, we usually hits in the single digits or zero. The testing is economic with immediate results in the field. The testing can actually be trackable. So if you're looking to document what you're doing in a building to reduce COVID risk, you can track and trend air handler bioloads very simply with this kind of test. It's called ATP testing. ATP testing has been used by the FDA for 30 years in food processing facilities to measure surface cleanliness. So that's kind of the last topical bit, and that is it for me.
Thank you, Jeff. Very interesting stuff. So we have a few minutes left. Great speakers, great information. Kendall, did you want to kind of go through the few questions I've seen in the chat?
Sure. I think there were a couple questions for John, and I think John answered most of them. One of the questions was about solar PV systems and the max system size for on-site generation behind the meter. John, if you want to expand on that anymore, I think you answered that question in the chat though.
Yeah, I did. And so that's just the cap for participation in the metering programs here in Michigan. You can elect to go bigger, but if you ever have a situation where your system generates more than the consumption at the building, you would not get any credit for the electricity that you're putting on the grid for free. So most of our clients elect to stay within that meter program cap.
All right, thank you. John, Jane also had a question. She said, can you say what the advantage solar might have for firms with EV fleets?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great one because they have such a great synergy together. you need electricity to charge the car, and the solar asset generates that electricity. And the big benefit, you know, is hedging your risk against the cost of gasoline, because we know that to be far more volatile in our human world than we know electricity pricing to be. And for that matter, the exchange of gassing your car to generating with the solar that you've bought into your electric car is incredible. I've had clients return to me and said, you know, you quoted me an 8 or 9 year solar return, but I just did it in 5 because I also turned my car over to an electric vehicle, and the cost of a kilowatt hour from my solar system was 6 times cheaper than the kilowatt hour from the grid. So I was able to turn over that investment far more with a higher level of value for my home or business. So there's absolutely a synergy there. And of course, if you're charging the cars when the sun is up, then you got a direct retail rate offset from the utility instead of even sending it back to the grid. So a lot of value in the thought of overhauling a company fleet and incorporating solar into your on-site charging situation.
And John, one last question that you answered in the chat was Jeff had asked, have you looked into deferred cooling cost from the shade the panels provide on the roof? And you had provided a link with some more information about that. Yeah,
so it definitely, Jeff, there definitely is a value stream there. And it's hard to even hit them all. You know, Connie hit another one there too, that the solar will actually protect the roof from the UV rays of the sun, which is the biggest detriment. So, you know, there are so many value streams here, but that one, it does hold a value, but you know, nothing that I would say that we sell on, that we model into the value, the financial value stream. I've heard anywhere from like 3 to 5% of cooling benefit or heating benefit because of the characteristics of the system. So, and I don't think that there's been much more study beyond that link is referencing a study out of, I believe, San Diego State or an alike university on the West Coast, where they did some thermal imaging of the solar panels and the roof where they were situated. They were getting the right results that are in line with the thinking that you're having, that it does have an effect, but I'm not sure much research has been done beyond that fact.
Okay, thanks, John. And I see Peter had entered some information about the DTE rebates available, so he had provided a link for anyone interested. But as far as questions in the chat, that's all I see. So we have about 4 minutes. Wanted to open it up if people wanted to just unmute themselves if they had any questions for the presenters.
I just want to note that this was recorded and I will send it out to everybody. You can also follow up. We'll get you connected via email to the presenters. But feel free to jump in right now if anybody wants to ask any questions or say hello. We are just about at the 1 o'clock time, so we snuck it all in just in time. Okay, I don't see any waving hands at all here. So I just wanted to let everyone know to keep in your eye out for a couple things. So we will not have a July lunch and learn, but we will have August, September, and November, I believe. We have 3 more for the rest of this year. And we have a multifamily slash house of worship best practice combined meeting in August on funding options for energy and water upgrades. And I'm trying to think, hopefully we're hosting the 2030 Summit in October in Detroit. We were supposed to do it last year, but we couldn't because of COVID. So we're expecting all 23 districts to be here in Detroit, and we will have a large reception the first night and a picnic at DTE Beacon Park. So keep your eyes out for that information. Please follow our newsletter. It's really has the most information possible in it. So I think that's it. I want to thank our speakers. Great information. Appreciate everybody's time. Enjoy your beautiful Friday afternoon.
Thank you.
We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Connie.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone.
Bye, everybody.